All right. So, career planning, we're going to talk about more Navy jobs, more career options. But particularly this one has to do with the Navy jobs. So, you're going to learn how to think about your career and your life goals in this whole segment. But this one in particular, this lecture has to do with the various career options and specialties within the United States Navy. There are a lot of them, and so we're going to move quickly through them, very quickly through them. If you have any questions, I'll be more than happy to talk about them offline. So like it says, this is not a typical NJ lesson. It describes a long list of Navy jobs and career options. I'm going to go through them as best I can to talk about what they are. So, all right. And we're going to skip this since we're not doing our clickers today. So, all right, Navy Learning Centers. So these are the different learning centers that we have in the Navy. So the Center for the Seabees and Facilities and Engineering. This is where the Seabees are. Seabees are construction battalion guys, and they're at Port Hueneme. And then there is Training Support Center San Diego, which if you go to boot camp, or when you go off the basic training, you go to the Training Support Center, Great Lakes, Illinois. Used to be that we used to have basic training in Great Lakes, Illinois, in San Diego, California, and in Orlando, Florida. But they closed the one in Orlando. But it used to be, when I came in the Navy, the only place that females trained was in Orlando, and that's not the case anymore. Everybody trains in Great Lakes now. So, chaplaincy school is at Fort Jackson, South Carolina. Yep. So there's a bunch of different places, and we'll see them as we get going. Pensacola, Florida. Let's talk about NATSE, the Naval Aviation Technical Training Center. Okay. Anybody know what these airplanes represent? The Blue Angels. That's right. I was stationed in Pensacola for 4 years, and they flew over my house every Tuesday, except for like after Christmas. You know, they shut down for Christmas, and then I think it was usually November and December is when they shut down for Christmas, and then they would leave like the day after Christmas to go out to El Centro, California, to start practicing for the next demonstration season. All right, so these are some of the aviation ratings we have. Remember that in the Navy, when we talk about a rate, we talk about a pay grade. All right, my pay grade is E7, but my rating is HM. I'm a hospital corpsman. You'll see that in a little bit too. But these, the ABs, are aviation bosun's mates, and there's different categories of them. So you get the ABEs, the ABFs, and the ABHs. The ABEs are green shirts. They're the engineering ones. They work on the arresting gear and the launch gear. And then the ABFs are the grapes, is what we call them. The reason why we call them grapes is because they have purple jerseys that they wear on the flight deck. So purple jerseys and purple flip coats. And then the ABHs are these yellow. These are the hydraulics guys. The ABHs, they start out as green shirts, but then they end up becoming yellow shirts if they get when they move up, when they become flight directors and aircraft handlers and that type of stuff. Air traffic controllers are exactly that. They control the aircraft on the ground and also in the air, because the airspace gets awfully busy, and there are no roads with lines and that type of thing for you to keep in the lane. And so you have an air traffic controller who's watching all of that on a radar display and directing air traffic. Aviation machinist mate, the ADs, the mechs as we call them, they're the ones who work on jets. They work on jet engines. And the cool thing about, you think to yourself, well, but the Navy's got helicopters. Why would they just work on jets? Because helicopters, prop-driven aircraft, and jets all use a jet engine of some sort. A jet, as in like what we talked, the go-fasters, like the Hornets, they have what's called a turbofan engine. The helicopter has a turbo shaft engine, and the prop-driven plane is a turboprop, and it's a jet engine, and it drives a propeller, it drives a rotor, or it drives a fan, which increases the air pressure in the jet engine. And if you want to, sometime, what I can do is I can talk to you. I can either do a demonstration, I can talk about, if any of this piques your interest, we could talk tomorrow if you wanted to. I don't really care, but we could talk tomorrow. If you have some questions and you bring those questions to class tomorrow, I'll answer those questions. like how does a jet engine work, or or how does lift work on because I have air warfare wings. I had to learn how to do it. So, all right, aviation electricians mates. These are the ones that run all the electrical stuff on an aircraft. Aerographers mates. They're kind of a different breed. They don't come with a squadron or anything like that. They usually come with an aircraft carrier or an air station. And these are the weathermen. And aerographers mates work for meteorologists. All right, aviation structural mechanics, the AMs. There's 3 different classifications of AMs. We have AMEs, AMHs, AMEs, and AMSs. AMSs are structural guys. They're the ones who work on the airframe itself. They also do corrosion control. They keep the aircraft painted and keep the rust off of it and that type of thing. AMHs work on the hydraulics of an aircraft, and then works for the control surfaces of a helicopter or a jet or a prop plane. And then the AMEs work on the egress systems. Those are the ejection seats and parachute. Well, not parachutes, but the egress systems, the pyrotechnics for blowing hatches off so that you can escape. Aviation ordnancemen, they're the ones that they load armament. They also arm it and disarm it. Okay? They arm it just before it takes off, and then they disarm it immediately after it lands. Aviation support equipment technicians, the ASs. These are what we call yellow gear mechanics, and what they do is they work on the tow motors, the ones that they'll use to tow an aircraft from one place to another. Okay? They also work on the crash, fire, and rescue vehicles, and they change the oil in those, and then they work on the huffer. Well, we don't even have huffers anymore, but APUs and things like that. So, auxiliary power units. That's what an APU stands for. Aviation electronics technicians. These are the electronics guys. All these guys have got secret clearances or better. All right, they can't talk about the electronics that they work on helicopters with their spouses or family or anything like that, other than just general terms. So, but they maintain all this electronics. AWs, Aviation Warfare Systems Operators. Now, there are different classifications of AWs, and I don't know what they are because they came after I left the Navy, after retiring. But now all AWs, the AWs are, they are actually aircrew. So they fly, and some of them will do anti-submarine warfare. Some of them are strictly rescue swimmers. Some of them are just load masters for helicopters and that type of thing. So that's what they do, and they get aircrew pay. They get flight pay. Aviation Maintenance Administrations, the AZs, they do all the administration for a maintenance, department and a squadron. So they're the ones that do all the paperwork and all that other stuff. So, all right, aircrew survival equipment men, the PRs. The PRs, we used to call them parachute riggers, all right, because they used to pack the parachutes, and they would have this big tall building that they called the paraloft. And what they would do is they would string out that parachute, and then they would do all the perimeter maintenance checks on it, and then they would go and they'd lay it out on this big long table. They'd lay out the parachute and they'd fold it and they'd pack the parachute. That's what they did. So, but now PRs, what they do is they maintain the life rafts and the survival kits that the aircrew carry, that type of thing. So, all right. Moving along. All right. Sorry to have to skip all that. Seabees. Seabees, I love Seabees. The Seabees, their motto is can do. Seabees can do. And they, no joke, can do. When I was in Iraq and I was going through Chief's initiation, one of the things that we had, these boxes, and we call them charge book vessels. I'll see if I can get a picture of it and show it to you tomorrow. But it's a big wooden box that we keep my charge book in. And listen, hey, I realize it's hard to stay awake. It's hard to stay awake, but you got to, all right? You can stand if you need to. That's okay. I won't be offended if you stand. But I will be offended if you fall asleep, because if you fall asleep and an administrator walks in, we both get in trouble, okay? So, you for sleeping and me for letting you sleep. So the Seabees, we had to build this book box, out of white oak. Well, where the heck are we going to get white oak in the desert in Iraq? And you know what the Seabees did? They went out to a junkyard and they found a flatbed truck that had red oak slats on the bed. And they pulled up all of that red oak and they milled it and they joined it and they made these big sheets of red oak from which they made our boxes out of. And it was funny because, and when you're going through Chief's initiation, you can't do anything right. And what they do, and we showed them to the genuine Chiefs at the time, and they were like, "That's not white oak." They'd shoot us up one side and down the other, and then we walked out, and they were like, "Oh my gosh, did you see what they did? That's crazy cool." There's no way they were going to let us know that they approved of what was done. But the Seabees did all that, and they did all of that. Seabees are awesome. All right, builders, they're the carpenters. Builder is a rating of Seabees. Construction electrician is the ones that will wire up a building. See, the Seabees will build the building, then the CEs will come in and they'll wire it. And then you got a construction mechanic. They maintain the machinery, the big machinery, the cranes and the bulldozers and all that other stuff. So the Seabees historically could fight. All right, one of their themes is "We build, we fight." And there was a movie that was made a long time ago, and it was called The Fighting Seabees, and it was like made in the 1950s or whatever. But I had to know the Seabee song. I had to learn it when I was going through Chiefs initiation. And so anyway, in fact, I learned it and then I taught it to all of my shipmates. All right, engineering aid. These are the ones that help do the surveying, land surveys. All right, equipment operators. These are the crane operators, bulldozer operators, backhoe operators. They operate all the big machinery. Okay? And then steel workers. Love steel workers. Love them. We, all the hardware that we put on those boxes I was telling you about, it's like we forged steel. It was really cool. I'll have to show that to y'all. Steel workers. All right, and then utilitiesmen. These are the plumbers. These are the ones that know how to plumb a building and all that too. Get your water to it and get your waste away. So, all right. Center for EOD and diving. Explosive ordnance disposal. The EOD techs disarm explosive ordnance. When we talk about ordnance, we're talking about a weapon. If we talk about aviation ordnance, we're talking about stuff that you mount on an aircraft, such as pyrotechnics, flares, missiles, bombs. They do the fusing of that stuff. Well, the EOD techs, they're the ones who disarm enemy bombs. And then they also disarm old, discovered American bombs and stuff like that. So, because sometimes we will have unexploded ordnance that was dropped on bomb ranges and that type of thing, and the EODs have to go out there and disarm that stuff. And they have to dive too. They have to know how to jump out of aircraft, and they know how to dive as well. And they can disarm stuff, mines and things like that underwater. Navy divers, these guys are cool. I worked with Navy divers for almost 3 years when I worked at an aviation survival training center. And those guys, they're cool, but they PT the dog snot out of it. And for PT, we would do things like that divers like to do, like water polo. I don't know what water polo is. Water polo is like soccer that you have to tread water the whole time with, and use your arms. You know, use your arms for throwing the ball and catching the ball, but you're like treading water with your feet the whole time. All right, and you can't grab onto the side of the pool. You have to stay active the whole time. It's hard. He plays. Your brother plays water polo. Yeah, it's a challenge. It's a killer workout. Anything in the water is really a killer workout. So, but Navy divers are responsible for. They do underwater ship maintenance. They'll check the hull. They'll do a hull sweep before the ship gets underway. They do underwater construction. They also do underwater rescue. They recover downed aircraft that have sunk in the water. They have to go down there and they'll pull out all the top secret instruments and that type of stuff. And then they'll bring those up to the surface, or they'll fix the airplane to bring it up to the surface or whatever. So cool stories. Some of the cool stories I've heard from the divers are just pretty slick. My middle son if he had his way, he'd have been a Navy diver. So instead, now he's an officer in the National Guard. So. All right, Center for Surface Combat Systems. All right. So bosun's mates, these are the ones that they tie up the ship. They weigh the anchor. They drop the anchor. They're responsible for underway replenishment. So like if you've got like a big ship needs to have groceries sent to it, right? Well, a supply ship comes along and the bosun's mates are the ones who will run the lines across so that they can move big pallets of groceries from one ship to the next. Bosun's mates, you got to have them, all right? And they are true sailors. They are the true sailors. Electronics technicians. They maintain the electronics that you have on a ship. Some of it is secret, some of it's not. Okay? Fire controlmen. These maintain the control mechanisms used in weapons systems on combat ships. So they're the ones, they do the repair on this. This right here is called a CIWS, which is a close-in weapons system, CIWS, CIWS. And anyway, it looks like R2-D2, but it sounds like it's the craziest thing when it shoots, because it shoots rounds so fast that it sounds like it's humming instead of shooting. But only it doesn't sound like it sounds like ah. That's what it more sounds like. So you can feel it in the hole too. It vibrates. Gunner's mates. These are the ones that maintain the guns. You got a big 5-inch depth gun. You got small weapons. Small weapons have to be maintained, so they'll maintain the armory on a ship. Like the M4s and the M9s, and the pistols and the rifles, and then they also we have gunner's mates also too that we'll use during underway replenishment, and they'll shoot the messenger line over to the next ship. So they'll shoot the messenger line over there, and then the people on that ship will pick up the messenger line, and they'll attach a bigger line, and then they'll pull it back over, and then they'll attach a bigger line, and they'll pull that back over, and back and forth, until you're sending lines over like this big around. And then in fuel hoses that are like this big around. It's like the most remarkable thing you've ever seen. It's a technological marvel. Minemen. These are the ones who they know how to take apart mines. They know how to assemble mines. All right. We don't have a lot of use for minemen, but we do have a need for them still. All right, for as far as defensively as possible. So we have to hang on to those guys. Because there's going to be a time we're going to need them again. OSs. These are the ones that operate the radar and navigation systems on aircraft, and they work in the Combat Information Center. So they're the ones who mash the button to launch the missiles, and they're the ones who will work with a helicopter that's trying to find a submarine. That's what they do. Quartermasters are the navigation people. All right, they assist the navigator and the officer of the deck in steering the ship. They take radar bearings. These guys know how to navigate by the stars too, which is really cool. So. All right, and then STGs. STGs are sonar techs. These are surface sonar techs, as opposed to an STS. If an STG is a surface sonar tech, what do you think an STS would be? Huh? What do you think the S stands for? Submarines, that's right. STSs are subtext, are sonar techs on submarines. All right, and they maintain the sonar equipment, and then they actually listen for like submarines and other traffic in the water. So ICs, interior communication electricians, these are the ones who, they maintain the internal communications on a ship. So you got these, what we call sound power phones, and they are exactly that. They are powered by your voice, and you can communicate with them even if all the power on the ship shuts down, you can still communicate with them. And they maintain the sound power phones. They also maintain the communication lines through the ship too. All right. Center for Naval Engineering. How are we doing on time? All right, we're moving along. Center for Naval Engineering.
Pardon the interruption. Michaela Thompson is needed for dismissal.
Okay.
Thank you.
See you. So, if a ship gets damaged, what do you think will happen if you get a hole in a ship? It'll sink. Damage controlmen, they are the ones who are specialized in keeping ships from sinking. Now, everybody on a ship has to know they've got to know how to, say, shore up a bulkhead, or to patch a pipe, or to plug a hole, things like that. But the thing is that damage controlmen are the ones who train them on how to do it. And the damage controlmen are also the ones who can keep the ship from sinking. And they're really good at it. Electricians' mates are responsible for the operation and repair of the electrical systems on a ship. Enginemen, they're responsible for the internal diesel and gasoline engines. So our engineman, even on a nuclear aircraft carrier, they have an engineman. And his responsibility, or her responsibility, is to maintain these big auxiliary diesel engines that they have on an aircraft carrier in case the reactors have to scram. Gas turbine systems technicians. So not all ships are nuclear powered. Okay? There are some that, in fact, there's a lot of them that are gas turbine powered. Thank you. And what they do is they use diesel fuel to turn turbines to create steam, to spin a turbine, which will turn a propeller shaft, and also create electricity and things like that. And somebody's got to maintain that stuff. So their main job is propulsion machinery and control systems. Okay. So GSEs and GSMs. I want to say the GSMs, I think, are mechanical. So those guys, I think, are the ones that do all the maintenance. And then the GSEs have to do particularly with propulsion, I think. I can't remember. I'm not a surface warrior, so I really don't know. I know if you ask me about aviation, I can tell you about aviation. You want to ask me how to take apart a 240 Golf with the Marine Corps, I can tell you how to do that too. But anyway, hull techs. Hull techs are the ones, they're the corrosion control guys for the hulls of the ships. The big, that's the big outer part, the part that actually is in contact with the water. Machinist mates. Machinist mates are responsible for the operation of the engines, compressors, gears, refrigeration, and air conditioning. So you got to have them in. So, machinery repairmen. It's in some places the machinist mates are the repairmen. So, but these guys maintain the equipment that the machinist mates use. So, medicine. This is me. Bethesda, Maryland. Hospital Corpsman A School is in Fort Sam Houston and San Antonio, Texas. I did not go to Hospital Corpsman A School in Texas. I went to Neuropsychiatric Technician School in Texas, but I went to Hospital Corpsman A School in Great Lakes, Illinois, and that's where we were the longest time. We had Hospital Corpsman A School in San Diego, and we had it in Great Lakes. And then they consolidated it all to Great Lakes, And then when all of the services decided to train all their medical people in the same place, they sent us all down to Fort Sam Houston. So hospital corpsmen are everywhere. They're everywhere in the Navy. We've got CV corpsmen, and we've got Marine Corps corpsmen. That was me. We've got aviation corpsmen. We've got surgical technician corpsmen. We've got pharmacy technician corpsmen. We have x-ray technician corpsmen. We have general duty corpsmen, which we'll see sick call. We've got general duty corpsmen that can sew people up. That was me. I got to do that. We got general duty corpsmen that can put in IVs. That was me. I can do that too. Stuff is what's so cool about being a corpsman. If you're interested in the medical field and you don't have enough money to go to college to become a nurse, I think it's better because you can do more stuff. But what's cool about it is you can do procedures when you're at sea or when you're deployed with the Marines or the Seabees that you can't do if you were back at a regular hospital or a naval hospital. So only nurses and doctors and physician's assistants can do it. But corpsmen can do it in an operational setting. So it's pretty cool stuff. We also have corpsmen that are dental techs too. It used to be a separate rating. The DT rating used to be dental techs, but they combined them with hospital corpsmen. And all right, and then we have CTs. We have crypto guys. Mr. Moore was a cryptologist, so he was an officer, a crypto officer. All right, and that's in Pensacola, Florida. Cryptological technicians, CTs. They're responsible for a bunch of different cryptological and signal intelligence type of stuff. There's 5 branches of cryptological technician. There's the CTIs, which are interpreted. These are the ones that learn languages, and they'll listen to enemy transmissions and they'll interpret that stuff. And then you have CTMs, and they maintain the equipment, the top secret equipment that cryptologists use to do their job. And then there's CTNs, which are the network people, and what they do is they write viruses and all kinds of malware to attack our enemy with. And then they also do defensive work too. So what they do is they write programs to defend us against enemy malware. Right? CTRs are what they do is they intercept enemy messages, and then they get that to people who can interpret that data. And then CTTs. These are their main duties are non-communications intelligence, electronic warfare support, electronic attack, and anti-ship missile defense. All right. ITs, computers. Am I boring you yet? Am I overwhelming you with information? Are you bored because you just haven't seen anything that you like yet? Is that what it is? What do you like? You
I know it when I see it, yeah.
Huh?
I know it when I see it.
You don't know it when you see it? How many other folks are bored because you haven't seen what you like? All right, what do you like? What are you looking for? Law enforcement? Okay. How about you, Elena? Huh? Human resources coming up. Both of those are coming up. All right. And then also ITs, they maintain the networks on ships and in non-secret, the non-top secret ones, not the stuff that the cryptological technicians, the CTNs don't do. Okay? All right. Center for Naval Intelligence. Intelligence specialists, they collect information and they put it in a usable form for intelligence officers to use and to process for military operations. They analyze photographs and they prepare charts and maps and that kind of stuff. So, all right. Personal and professional development. Navy counselors. Here we go. Human resources. All right. Navy counselors offer vocational guidance to Navy personnel. You don't come into the Navy as a Navy counselor. It's something that you do a lateral transitional move into. My predecessor was a Navy counselor. He was an NCC. He was a chief Navy counselor, but he originally was a bosun's mate. He was a bosun's mate long before he became an NC. And anyway, so he became a recruiter, and while he was a recruiter, he became an NC, and then when he retired, he came to work here. All right, and then also too, Navy counselors are also what we call career counselors. So they'll have them assigned to, there'll be one assigned to a specific command, and then their job is to handle reenlistments and reenlistment bonuses and advancement exams and things like that. Okay. Service support, culinary specialists that prepare menus and food. You like that? That's what you're interested in? Okay. Culinary specialists. Listen, some of them, depending on where you go to work, like if you're going to go on a submarine or something, that's the top-notch food. They train those guys well so that they can feed people well. They also do barracks management. So these are the guys These are guys and gals of the hospitality industry. Okay. Legalmen. So these are folks that are some of them can become paralegals. A lot of them are notaries, but they prepare wills and contracts and things like that for the lawyers to execute. Okay. Mass communication specialists, journalists is what these are. And they operate cameras, and they also, they're anchormen and women. They actually have news programs. We call it Navy Marine Corps News. Okay. Musicians. Believe it or not, we got musicians. But listen, just because you play in the band doesn't mean that you can audition for musician. Most of these people, if I'm not mistaken, all of them have majored in music, at least as an undergrad. Now, most of them have got master's degrees in music. So they come into the Navy as an E5. And so they come in as advanced standing because they've been to college. All right. Postal clerks. That's what they do, the mail. And they handle all that stuff. You see all this stuff right here? All that stuff came off of an airplane. It came off of the C2 or a C2 COD, Greyhound, which is a carrier onboard delivery, and they bring the mail. You gotta love those guys. Storekeepers is the ones that maintain. They maintain all the supplies, parts, everything. Personnel specialists. There's your human resources people. They provide enlisted personnel with information and counseling about Navy jobs, opportunities for general education and training, and advancement requirements. They also maintain service records and training records. They type letters. They maintain files. RPs. RPs are the religious program specialists, and these folks work for the chaplains. And it's very what we call ecumenical, which means that you have a bunch of different religions all working together. So you may have a Christian chaplain, but his RP is a Muslim, or vice versa. You may have a Christian RP who's working for a Muslim chaplain, or working for a Jewish chaplain, or something of that nature. So, but their job is not to conduct services. RPs, their job is to order supplies so that different religions can worship. Their job is also to set up for religious worship services and that type of thing. Some people really enjoy it. It would not be my cup of tea. So, even though I'm religious, it would not be my cup of tea. So. And a lot of it depends too, on what your conscience will allow you to do. And I don't think my conscience would allow me to set up for a Muslim or a Buddhist service. Nor would I expect, if I were a Christian chaplain, a Buddhist RP, to be wholeheartedly, eager to set up for my worship service or anything. So I mean, what goes around comes around. But it takes a special breed to do this. So oftentimes, occasionally, you'll have some pretty devout RPs. I had one that I was friends with in the Chiefs Mess in Al Asad. I never remember his last name. I just remember his name is Dino. But anyway, he was a senior chief at the time. He ended up becoming a master chief. So. Ship servicemen, these folks, they operate the laundry. These are good people to be friends with. They operate the laundry. They operate the ship store. If you know, anytime you want Geedunk, y'all know what Geedunk is?
No, is it like milk?
Huh?
Is it like something like ham or something?
It's candy. Geedunk is like candy and potato chips. Anything that's not good for you. What the Army and what the Marine Corps calls pogey bait. So basically anything that will attract roaches and mice. So, right? But they also operate the ship store, so they'll have uniform items and stuff like that you can pick up if your uniforms get destroyed, or if you need, or if you want to buy a boombox, or or an MP3 player, or that kind of stuff. They have that stuff in the ship store that you can buy.
How would you destroy it?
How do you destroy a uniform? You can get grease and stuff on it.
Oh.
So this is where a ship serviceman come in handy. I tell you, I appreciated this one time. It's always good to have somebody who knows somebody. All right. Ship servicemen also too are the barbers. They're the barbers and the hair cutters. So anyway, so I had a buddy of mine. Well, I was on the flight deck, and there was the coat that they would give us to wear, the foul weather coat that they would give us to wear on the flight deck. For some reason, the wind would just pierce it. I don't know what the deal was, but it was cold. And so I would go up there and I would wear my dungaree jacket, which was this blue jacket. It was less permeable to the wind and all that other stuff. And I liked it. It looked cool. And but anyway, so I'm standing up on the shot line on the bow, and an aircraft launches, and I don't know what happened, but I got sprayed with fuel. Yeah, I got sprayed with fuel and it just got all over my stuff. Well, JP5 is a very pungent smell. It smells, it's kind of like diesel, but it has a little bit of a different smell to it. And so, it's funny because I'd still get nostalgic if I smell like diesel in the wintertime, because it smells like jet exhaust. And I'm just like, some of my best times were on the flight deck. I loved it. So anyway, my friend, Pendarvis, he took, and he's from this area too, and I think he was of relation to the Pendarvis Chevrolet up in Edgefield. So up in Edgefield, Johnson, or Trenton, I can't remember which town it is, but anyway, so he took it to the ship's laundry and had it cleaned for me. How cool was that? And then they also do all the dry cleaning too for the officers and the chiefs, and they do all that. Of course, they have to pay for it, not the ship servicemen, but the officers. Yeah.
Is that a giant washing machine?
That is a giant dryer is what that is. And so it's because they'll issue you sheets to put on your rack. So, yeomen perform secretarial and clerical work for officers. The yeomen work for officers primarily. Okay? They organize files, order and distribute supplies, write business and social letters, notices, directives, forms, and reports. For the longest time, they wanted to combine yeomen with personnel with PSs. And they realized that their jobs were very different, and even though they were similar, they were still very different, and so they still have yeomen. SEALs, special warfare, all right? Yeah, special warfare boat operator, or SBs. These are the ones that drive the big combatant boats that carry the SEALs around. The ones that they have the big Gatling gun on the front of it and all that. All right, and then you got SEALs, the SOs. It used to be that you had source ratings for SEAL. So you had HMs, hospital corpsmen, that would go and become SEALs. And they decided to get rid of hull techs and bosun's mates and all that. Y'all remember, anybody here read or seen the movie, what's the one? It's got Mark Wahlberg in it. I cannot believe I've forgotten the name of it. Marcus Luttrell was the name of the SEAL.
Isn't there a movie about like the
There is a movie on it, and I'm trying to remember the name of it. I'll think of it.
shooter?
No, it's not. It's 2 words, but I can't remember what it is. Something alone, or Lone Survivor, or Lone.
Lone Star Survivor. Lone Ranger.
No, not Lone Ranger. I can't remember. Lone something or other. I want to say it's like Lone Survivor or I don't know. But anyway, Mark Luttrell. At the time, this is back before the SEALs became SOs. Mark Luttrell was a hospital corpsman, and he was a SEAL. Yep. And this is the hardest training in the world. It is. It doesn't get any harder than this. And SEALS stands for Sea, Air, Land. That's what that stands for. Okay. I think we're about done. Oh, almost. Security forces, Master at Arms. There's your military policemen. So some of them are dog trainers. They do all their training, I think, at Lackland Air Force Base. So they either do it at Lackland, actually, I think they either do it at Lackland, or they may now do it up at Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri. So submarine learning. You got sub-ETs. They're electronics techs, and they do navigation. Electronics techs, they also do, not just electronics, but they also do navigation and stuff too. Fire control technicians, these are the ones that program the torpedoes and the Tomahawk missiles and that type of thing. Machinist mates, you've got nuke machinist mates, you've got regular machinist mates that maintain the diesels on submarines. If it sounds like I'm hurrying, I am trying to get done with this before the period lets out. Okay, and you got machinist mate weapons. These are the torpedo men. They maintain the torpedoes. Machinist mate engineering. These are the nuclear guys. So they maintain the nuclear reactor. Missile technicians maintain the intercontinental ballistic missiles, the submarine launched ballistic missiles that launch nukes at our enemies, which has never happened. Sonar techs, we've already talked about the STSs. Okay, and Center for Submarine Learning. Now you know why I didn't have you guys use your clickers, right? Because with 1 minute to spare, and we have used every minute of this period. This is a huge, huge lesson. So I hope you learned something. If you've got any questions, those of you who are virtuals, if you have any questions, you can email them to me, virtuals. If you guys have any questions, email them to me too. And then what I'm hoping to do is sometime before the holidays, let's do a big old question and answer time. But you got to send them to me ahead of time. You can't ask me. You might be able to get an answer the day of, but in most cases, I'm still need to do some research on it. So please give that some consideration. I love answering your questions. If you're curious, I love curiosity. All right.